You're standing in the middle of a dimly lit rehearsal space, the air thick with the sound of guitars being tuned and drumsticks tapping against cymbals. It's late summer, and you've been working quietly on something that feels like the boldest move of your career. Your vision for this album isn't just about making songs, it's about capturing an entire cultural moment. But there's one track that's been weighing on you. You know it's a risk, maybe even a gamble. You want to sample Third Eye Blind's Semi-Charmed Life, a song so woven into the fabric of 90s pop rock that people can instantly hum it after just a few notes. You've been warned it might be complicated. Music rights are a labyrinth of contracts, negotiations, and personalities, and Stephan Jenkins, the band's frontman, has a reputation for being particular about his work. But to you, this isn't just borrowing nostalgia. It's about taking a familiar sound and reframing it for a generation that didn't grow up with cassette tapes and MTV countdowns. You imagine the hook riding over your verses, creating a strange blend of memory and rebellion. Then comes the unexpected twist. Your team tells you there's been a bizarre hiccup in the process. Not just lawyers or managers, but an actual National Guard incident connected to the clearance talks. Nobody's saying much, but the whole thing feels like it belongs in a documentary about how not to secure a sample. And yet, you're still pushing forward. The legal lines are tense, but the track, titled Starman, already feels like it's part of your album's DNA. You know that if you pull this off, the payoff will be more than just streaming numbers. It will be proof that you can rewrite the rules, even when the odds are stacked against you. The day you finally get the call feels like a scene from a movie. You're half expecting bad news, another round of negotiations, or maybe even a flat-out refusal. Instead, the voice on the other end is calm, almost casual. Stephan Jenkins has heard Starman, and he's not only fine with the sample, he actually likes what you've done. He calls it a cultural continuation, as if the track is less a reimagining and more an evolution. For a moment, all the stress, the waiting, and the bizarre roadblocks dissolve into a quiet rush of relief. You think about the irony. Third Eye Blind's Semi-Charmed Life was once the soundtrack for a very different era, an upbeat, radio-friendly hit that carried a darker undertone if you listened closely enough. In your hands, it's become something grittier, more urgent, layered with verses that speak to the fractured, high-speed culture of now. Jenkins doesn't just give you the green light, he gives you his blessing to release it without compromise. But you don't linger on the victory for long. The album rollout is already in motion, and there's no time to waste. The marketing team is buzzing about how Starman might be the track that pulls in both older fans who remember the original and younger listeners who see you as a voice of their generation. They're talking playlists, sync opportunities, and even a potential sports tie-in. You can see the machine starting to turn, gears grinding faster by the hour. That night, you walk into a small club in New York City for an unannounced set. It's not part of any tour, just a raw, sweaty room full of people who didn't expect to hear new music. You run through a few tracks before dropping Starman, and the reaction hits like a wave. Phones go up, voices shout the hook, and you can feel in your bones that the risk you took was worth it. You wake up the next morning to headlines and notifications stacked on your phone like a flood you can't hold back. Clips from the New York show are everywhere. Grainy TikTok videos, Instagram stories, fan edits that stitch Starman to old 90s footage of Semi-Charmed Life. The comments are a strange mix of nostalgia and surprise. Some people can't believe you touched such a classic. Others say you've given it a second life. And somewhere in the middle, you notice Jenkins himself reposting one of the videos, adding nothing but a winking emoji. The label smells momentum and moves fast. They push Starman to the front of the streaming platforms, securing prime playlist spots. By noon, the track is already climbing the charts, and the numbers are coming in heavier than expected. But it's not just about this one song. The entire Lost Americana album is part of a bigger rollout, one that's been timed down to the hour. There's the Cleveland celebration coming up, a 3-day event the city has already started calling MGK Day. There's the partnership deal with the College Football League, where Don't Wait, Run Fast will soundtrack highlight reels and stadium hype videos across the country. You're moving through all of this at a speed that barely lets you breathe. Photo shoots, interviews, and sound checks bleed into each other until you forget what day it is. But then there are moments moments when it slows down, like walking into a record store in the afternoon and seeing your face plastered on a wall display, or overhearing someone in line talking about how Lost Americana feels like the kind of album they'll still be playing years from now. There's no time to pause, though. Tomorrow you're back on stage in another city, with the world watching to see if you can keep this momentum alive. Cleveland greets you with the kind of welcome you can't fake. From the moment you step off the plane, there's a low hum in the air, the sound of a city ready to celebrate one of its own. Posters for MGK Day are taped to shop windows, stretched across light poles, even plastered on the sides of buses. 3 days of music, fan meetups, and late-night events are planned. But for you, it's more than just promotion. It's a return to the place that shaped you. You walk through the downtown streets with your team, catching glimpses of old spots you used to know. Some are still there, others gone, replaced by slick glass buildings and boutique shops. The people recognize you instantly. Strangers stop you on the sidewalk, phones out, telling you what your music meant to them when they were trying to figure out who they were. A few bring old merch for you to sign, faded shirts from past tours, ticket stubs folded into wallets for years. When you hit the stage that night, the crowd is a wall of sound. Every word you spit bounces back at you twice as loud. The energy is different here, not just hype, but pride. You drop Starman midway through the set, and it feels like the whole city is singing with you. You can see fans in their 20s losing their voices next to people who probably first heard Semi-Charmed Life on a car radio in 1997. The generational divide melts in the chorus, and for a moment, everyone in the room is in the same story. Later, backstage, someone hands you a proclamation from the mayor, official recognition of MGK Day. You hold it for a second, not as a trophy, but as proof that a song, a sample, and a gamble can ripple out further than you ever imagined. And the night is only halfway over. The second day of MGK Day doesn't feel like a festival. It feels like the city has turned itself inside out just to keep the energy going. Local coffee shops are blasting Lost Americana from their speakers. Murals are being painted in real time, spray cans hissing under the hands of street artists who've been inspired by your music for years. People are wearing your lyrics on handmade shirts, some drawn with permanent marker, others printed professionally overnight. Everywhere you look, the album has leaked into the city's bloodstream. You start the afternoon with a listening session at a small theater. Fans line up around the block, some holding vinyl copies of the album like they're holding something fragile. Inside, you dim the lights and let the tracks roll, watching people's faces as they hear certain moments for the first time. The swelling hook on Starman, the heavy bass drop in Don't Wait, Run Fast. You can tell when a lyric hits them hard because they stop moving, almost like they need a second to process it. Later, you step outside into a crowd that's doubled in size since the morning. You're moving through a sea of people when a kid, maybe 12 years old, hands you a notebook full of handwritten verses. He tells you he started writing because of you, and that Lost Americana is the reason he's not afraid to share his words anymore. You take the notebook, flip through a few pages, and it feels like looking into a mirror you didn't know you had. That night's set is different from the first. Louder, sharper, with a set list built to push the limits of the room. You're running across the stage, pouring every last drop of energy into the mic. When the lights finally cut, you can still hear the crowd chanting your name in the dark, refusing to let the moment end. By the third day, the celebration has become something bigger than an album release. It's a living, breathing reminder of what music can do when it connects in the right way. You wake up to the sound of fans already gathering outside the venue hours before anything is scheduled to start. Some are wearing jerseys with your name printed across the back. Others have handwritten signs quoting your lyrics. The air feels charged, like everyone knows this is the last day, and they're not willing to waste a second of it. The schedule is stacked: a charity meet and greet, a surprise pop-up performance at a skate park, and a late-night rooftop set to close it all out. At the skate park, you stand on the edge of a half-pipe, mic in hand, while kids on boards weave between the crowd. The sound system is rough, the sun is beating down, but the energy is pure chaos in the best way. You run Starman there, stripped down and raw, and it somehow hits even harder without the big production. Backstage before the rooftop show, you take a moment alone. You think about how close Starman came to never existing, about the legal calls, the delays, the weird twists that almost derailed it. And yet, here you are, on the verge of closing out 3 days that have turned into a defining chapter in your career. When you step onto that rooftop, the city skyline spreads out around you, lit by thousands of tiny lights. The bass kicks in, and for the next hour, the crowd is yours. You can see people on neighboring rooftops dancing along, strangers in passing cars leaning out to catch a glimpse. When you close with Starman, the final chorus echoes out over Cleveland like a signal to anyone listening. This is what it looks like when a risk pays off. The morning after, Cleveland is quieter, but the traces of the last 3 days are still everywhere. Posters hang half-torn on brick walls, chalk lyrics fade on sidewalks, and empty streets carry the faint echo of crowds that stayed until the lights went out. You walk through the city almost unnoticed for the first time since you arrived. Hoodie up, hands in your pockets. It feels different now, less like you're passing through, more like you've left something behind that belongs here. Your phone is still buzzing with notifications, charts showing Starman climbing faster than expected, press coverage from outlets that usually don't cover your world, and messages from artists who want to collaborate now that they've seen what you just pulled off. You scroll through them without urgency, letting the reality of it all settle in. This wasn't just about a sample or an album or even the numbers. It was about proving to yourself that you could take a song people thought was untouchable and make it live again. That night, you're back in your own space, sitting on the floor with a guitar in your lap. No crowd, no stage, no cameras, just you running through a few chords, while the city outside starts to move on. Somewhere in the distance, you hear a car roll past with Starman playing loud enough to cut through the hum of traffic. You can't see who's inside, but you don't need to. The song is out there now, in the wild, finding its way into lives you'll never fully know. And in that quiet, you realize the real win isn't the applause or the headlines. It's the fact that the music has escaped you and become its own story, one that will keep playing long after this week fades into memory.